Hello and welcome to the Musicking Podcast. I'm your host, Trinity Lay, and this is part 4 of our 5-part series on the tabla. Last episode, we talked about the qaida, and in today's episode, that structure is very similar to our next topic, the rela. Relas have the same rules as the qaida, so they will be easy to follow along. Following this section is the fixed compositions. These are compositions that have been composed by the great masters and have been passed down from generation to generation within different schools and families for centuries. Instrumental in the creation of the fixed composition is the ti, which we covered briefly. As a review, a ti is a phrase which is played 3 times that lands on the first beat of the time cycle. Fixed compositions make use of this format and expand upon it. You'll hear tihis within a tihi, and you'll even hear entire compositions that are meant to be repeated 3 times to land on the 1. Almost all fixed compositions will end in some kind of tihi, so listen closely for that and you'll be able to follow and anticipate the ending. So after you finish the qaida aspect of the performance, what happens then?
At that point, you'd move on to another compositional form. There's many compositional forms in tabla, but generally you follow sort of a roadmap as the solo is progressing, and the speed will increase generally to accommodate those compositions. So another kind of composition is called rela, or rao even, which are similar. A rela is basically, from what I understand, it comes from, again, this is debatable, but from the word railgadi. And a railgadi in India is the train, essentially. And as that train goes past, super fast, it's making that same, which is kind of like the rapid motions of a rela. Relas are always super fast compositions. And you essentially develop them in the same way that you would develop a qaida. So this is a common rela that's played. So these are all compositions where the notes essentially lend themselves to playing fast. Ta, tite gira naga tit, ta gira naga. That's another kind of rela. So those would come anywhere between, say, the qaidas, which will happen after the peshkar, and sometimes the gut which is another compositional form, will come before this or after it. But we can get into that now, the fixed compositions in the tabla repertoire. Mm-hmm. So all these compositions that I played thus far are compositions that you improvise on ultimately in your talim, in your training. Once you're ready, then you start improvising on your own. But at first, you're given a lot of these variations. So fixed compositions are not like that. Those you play as they were written and as they were told, however many 100 years ago, and you try to play it to the... It's not unlike Western classical music in that sense. So, this is a fixed composition. Tisrajati. So it ends in a nice little T high there. So incidentally, these fixed compositions employ all the language of tabla. It means there's no rule. You can use whatever language or phrases that you want. And when they compose, that's what they did. You're not limited. So that's what makes them sort of different and beautiful, and the reason you don't add your own thing. So here's another one. So that had a T high, but the first part of the T high was at the end of the rhythmic cycle. It didn't start on 1. So that's where you get into there's all different sorts of formulas for T highs.
And just so the audience can really hear the poetry of it all, of the language, could you recite one or two?
Absolutely. Tin, tin, ta, tin, ta. Ta again, the cut again, the dark dead, the cut again, the naga cut again, the dark dead, the cut again, the ta, tit, ta, dark dead, the cut again, the ta, dit, ta, dark dead, the cut again, the ta, dit, ta. Next one will be one of different language. The one that I played, that dit, this essentially comes from the Pakawaj tradition, which is one of the drums that preceded tabla. And now I'll play, because I'm not playing in Pakawaj tradition, I'll play a drum that's more tabla oriented, which will be a higher pitched drum, because the Pakawaj is generally a very low pitch compared to tabla. So here's another fixed composition. Ta, tina, kirikata, takita tina, kirikata, takita tetita katraka tetita kataka diginata, drigata, drigata. Another one. Din din tete tete gege tete godigena takita ta na ta tete kata godigena ta kata ta tete kata godigena ta kata ta tete kata godigena ta kata ta. Tage tete krada krada kirek din na katita ta ge na ta kata ta katita ta ge na ta kata ta katita ta ge na ta kata ta. So these are some fixed compositions.
And you won't get in trouble for spilling their secrets.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode covering the Rela and Fixed Compositions. In the next episode, the last one, we'll be talking about the other settings that tabla plays in, mainly accompaniment, folk music, religious music, in the recording studio, and beyond. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website, www.musickingpod.com, and also follow us on social media at musickingpod. I hope to see you in the next episode.